Small stories from life part 17. Here is the first story, looking at yourself through the eyes of others. In a certain editorial office, there was a very talented painter. Whether it was portraits or still lifes, he painted very beautifully. Most of his colleagues received a portrait from him. However, he had never had a self-portrait before. When asked why, the painter said that drawing himself would not be beautiful. His colleagues were extremely surprised. Drawing himself was not so difficult. He smiled and replied that to draw someone else, even a complete stranger, I just need to observe carefully and capture the person's demeanor, but when drawing myself, I could not do that. Now, please try to close your eyes and think of your mother. Everyone did the same, and everyone could imagine their mother's gentle eyes and warm smile. The painter continued, now, everyone, try to imagine your own image. Strangely, no one can do that. They only remember what they were wearing, but not the specific shape of their eyebrows or eyes. It turns out that the person we understand the least is ourselves. The artist slowly said, maybe I should ask someone to draw me. Then I will study that step carefully and pay close attention to myself. Only then will I be able to draw a soulful self-portrait. The lesson is that you are in the eyes of others. Listen to what people say about you. Sometimes it is harder to see yourself clearly than to see others clearly. So sometimes you should try to look at yourself through the eyes of others to get a more objective perspective of yourself. Thank you for listening.
Followed by the second story, be steadfast in the face of challenges. It was a canyon with rugged terrain, below was a rushing waterfall, the bridge across was just a rusty iron bar with 3 people standing at one end of the bridge, 1 blind, 1 deaf and 1 healthy person. Each person took turns crossing the narrow and old bridge as if hanging on the back in the air. As a result, the blind and the deaf safely crossed to the other side while the healthy person fell off the cliff. Why was that? The blind person couldn't see anything, so he didn't know the rugged terrain, so he just kept going. The deaf person couldn't hear anything, so he wasn't scared by the roar of the waterfall below. It turned out that the third person's defect was his good hearing and good eyesight. The lesson learned is that the bridge across the canyon symbolizes challenges and hardships in life. Train your spirit to be steadfast so you won't be affected by external circumstances. Thank you for listening.
Followed by the third story, good deeds should be done. There was a boy who was an apprentice at a bicycle repair shop. One day, a customer brought a broken bicycle into the shop. He not only repaired the bicycle carefully but also cleaned it thoroughly. The other apprentices laughed at the foolish boy for wasting his time doing useless work without being paid. 2 days later, the customer came back to get the bicycle. He was very satisfied with the boy's skills and thoughtfulness, so he decided to invite him to work at his factory with a high salary. The lesson learned is that selfless actions that come from a pure heart often bring unexpected luck. Thank you for listening.
Followed by the fourth story, the distance between heaven and earth. A curious person asked the philosopher, you are a learned person, do you know how far the distance between heaven and earth is? The philosopher replied, about 1 meter. The other person immediately objected. Sir, except for infants and children, we are all over 1 meter tall. If the sky were only 1 meter above the ground, wouldn't we all be hitting our heads against the sky? The philosopher calmly replied, yes, everyone is over 1 meter tall. But whoever wants to understand the distance between heaven and earth must learn to bow their heads. The above story talks about the morality of bowing and the proper behavior in life. Bowing here does not mean flattery or sycophancy, but understanding life and knowing one's own ability so that one can be ready to face reality. Thank you for listening.
Followed by the fifth story, what is a real man? A father was very disappointed in his son because at the age of 16, he was very weak and not as strong as his peers. The father took his son to see a martial arts monk with the hope that his son could become stronger and become a real man. The monk said, "I can help you on one condition, that you must let your son stay here for 3 months. During those 3 months, you are not allowed to see your son. After 3 months, I guarantee that you will be satisfied with your son." As promised, the father did not visit his son for 3 months. On the appointed day, the monk organized a martial arts competition to show the father the results of his son's training. His son's opponent was a martial arts master. During the match, the son was continuously beaten and fell to the ground. However, he did not give up and always tried to stand up after each fall. The father was both heartbroken and ashamed, but he still persevered in watching the match. After the son lost in pain, the monk turned to the father and asked if he thought his son was a real man. "I feel so ashamed of him. He spent 3 months practicing, but he didn't get any stronger. How can he be called a real man?" The father said disappointedly, it was a pity that he only focused on the results and judged his son based on his failures and successes. Didn't he see how brave and resilient his son was when he always stood up after being knocked down? Success is not never falling, but always standing up after falling. That is the quality that a real man must have. The father heard this and immediately realized, thanked the monk profusely and took his son home. The lesson learned is that it doesn't matter how many times you fall. What matters is that you always stand up after each fall. We don't fail because we fall. We only fail when we allow ourselves to give up after those falls. Thanks for listening. Hello and see you again in Small Stories of Life Part 18.